Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@usaprepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Blissed? Dr. Shealy, are you blissed?
Yes.
Yeah. Alex is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota at Genesis Communications Network today. Thank you, Alex. If you'd like to call us, class, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. Telephone listen lines up and running, 605-477-3249. Dr. Shealy, I have a quick message, a little bit of housekeeping before we get started, if that's okay with you.
Of course.
Okay. So there's lots of interest in the news lately, and there's so much negativity, and there's so much hate. I was even at a place to get a beverage, and I happened to bump into a guy. I never met him before, and gosh, he was so angry about what was happening with the president, how much he disliked him, and it comes out with so quickly. People you don't even know just blurt out their displeasure with him, and I've never seen anything like this before in my life. Even when Barry was our president, I never saw anything like this. But we're now in the impeachment phase of Donald Trump's presidency, President Donald Trump. And it's interesting how much people are paying attention to the news, minute by minute. It's also very interesting that our numbers at USA Prepares have increased significantly in the last few weeks. But we haven't changed our content. We haven't changed our delivery. I think it could be credited to our detractors who are saying things on the internet about why people should not tune in. So I want to thank them. And I'm not kidding. I really mean this, because they're saying things like, no need to go here. No need to listen to these guys. I'm paraphrasing. And I find it quite fascinating that they have enough time to tell people, yeah, no need to look here. There's nothing here. Well, one detractor in particular, he's been a detractor for quite a while, and he's been saying negative things about us. And now he is begging, literally, he is begging to be allowed to say negative things. He thinks he's been banned. I don't know anything about him being banned, but it's like, hey, come on, I've got some things to say, and yeah, they're negative, and I haven't called Finelli a moron yet, and but you know, I think free speech is, you know, where it ought to be, and you know, can you please let me say negative things?
Now, you know, I think most negative people are pretty low in IQ and other things. But this one must be beyond moron.
Well, all right, let me just read you the last recent post. From a guy named Keith, and his last name has the letter D. And this is to Ron Gibson. He's posted this on the internet. Now, the Ron Gibson channel is on YouTube, and Ron Gibson is a gentleman. I know Ron Gibson. I've met him. We've had lunch together. I met him in the Carolinas when I was out there. Well, he had decided to just post the audio of USA Prepares on his YouTube channel. And I've given him permission to strip out the commercials. And I think it's better without the commercials, frankly. But, you know, on Genesis, somebody's got to pay for it, so ads are sold. Well, I've given him permission, and Genesis has given him permission to strip out the commercials. So, but then YouTube puts commercials back in. But anyway, so this guy, Keith, posts very often, almost every day, and he's got hardly anything good to say. It's always bash, bash, bash USA Prepares. Most of the comments are directed at me, but here's his latest one. I'm going to read this verbatim. Quote, dear is with a lowercase, because I guess that's how Keith does it. But, quote, Dear Ron, it appears that you've chosen to restrict or ban comments from some of the listeners of Vincent Finelli's channel. I must assume that you were pressured into this by him, and of course, it's your right to follow his suggestions. Vincent has mentioned your name numerous times and claims you're an instructor and that he has given you permission to strip commercials from the show and post it to YouTube. This must put you in an uncomfortable position, especially if your channel is monetized and you receive income from it. I only ask that you review any and all of my posted comments and note that I have never used profanity, never referred to Vince as a retard, a moron, know-it-all, etc. And absolutely never attacked members of his family. If you listen to the show, you must be aware that he solicits suggestions and comments, so I really feel it is hypocritical of you and Vincent both to take this action to ban negative comments to his show. Have a great day, and thank you for your time and past contribution to a free and open internet experience. End quote. I have never mentioned Keith to Ron Gibson. I know nothing about any banning or editing or censoring of his comments. I know nothing about it. Now, I don't particularly like this guy. I mean, he just doesn't seem to have anything positive to say. Well, I mean, I can't think of anything. He's never said, great show. I've never seen that. So, anyway, here we have a guy.
I think he should run on the Democratic Party.
I think... I think so, and I think if he had a poster and it had his it would look like Alfred E. Newman from Mad Magazine.
But
that's I am, but I really do want to thank him. But there's a message that's very important here. Even though he has nothing good to say about us, I think he has the right to free speech, but I don't think he has the right to shout fire in a crowded theater. I don't think that. But I do think, he should have the right to free speech. But I don't appreciate being bashed and having him do his best to try to dissuade people from, learning about the things that we teach. We teach things that just aren't even in college. But the interesting thing is our numbers are up, and I think it has something to do with him and some of the other detractors. But what I don't want to happen is I don't want people to say, this guy is a real problem, and we need to, teach him a lesson. Now, if they want to teach him a lesson, with words on the internet and respond to his daily negative posts, which is what's happening now, that's fine. But I don't want him sought out and taken to the woodshed, and so I don't want any harm to come to any of our detractors. I don't want any. I will not endorse that. Now, of course, if they show up at the farm and they want to have a discussion, we can have a discussion here at the farm. We can have a discussion wherever, but they're not welcome here. They're not welcome here. But if they show up, we can have a discussion. They can stand out in the road. But that's kind of my message, that we have detractors. And if you look at what's happening, Dr. Shealy, we are entering into a cold civil war. A cold civil war. It's not a hot one yet. A lot of lead hasn't started flying, but President Donald Trump says there's so much division, so much hate. He's not used those words, I'm paraphrasing, that we are in a cold civil war. And if we get into a civil war, a real one, a hot one, he says we'll never recover. Now, I think that's partially true. Because in the South, I spent some time in the South, almost 2 decades. And the South has not forgotten Sherman and what he did when he set the South ablaze. They haven't forgotten that. So the Civil War is still remembered in the South. And there's a high school, a public high school, that on Martin Luther King Day They celebrated on that day, but they didn't celebrate Martin Luther King. They celebrated Lee Jackson, General Robert E. Lee, and Stonewall Jackson. It was Lee Jackson Day. So the South is still feeling the effects of the first Civil War. And I feel like we're going into the second one, a hot one.
Well, I've been
Dr. Shealy,
predicting that for the last 4 years. I said there was a 100% chance if Hillary was elected and a 50-50 chance if Trump was elected. So,
Yes, you did. And it's very sad because we really don't need to do this. And, you know, if you think about it, guys like us, you know, if Bernie, the socialist, is selected and he redistributes everything that people have worked so hard for all their lives and their parents' lives and their grandparents' lives, and that wherewithal and that wealth is hard earned. And when I say wealth, I don't mean rich. I just mean whatever accumulations a family has gotten. Those things, if they are thrown into a pile and redistributed among everybody, I mean that's going to make people angry, absolutely angry. And that's the stuff wars are made out of. Civil wars are made out of stealing, and that's what the South felt when Sherman came down, set fire to the railroad tracks, bent them, burned down buildings, killed farm animals, burned down farms, tore up the South, 10-mile wide swath, 500 miles long. Yeah, that's what is remembered by the Southerners, and they should remember it because it set them back so far it was almost impossible to recover. It made life very, very hard. Sickness, disease followed. Plenty of deaths outside of being wounded, maimed, and with artillery and guns and bayonets. It's not necessary. So, Dr. Shealy, any quick comments before we continue on to an article that you sent
on with the
me?
show.
Okay. So I received an email about from a wellnessdevices.net. What is pulsed electromagnetic field therapy? And there's a video on that. So, class, if you want to go to wellness.net, you can find the article on PEMF therapy. And would you like to talk about what this article says, or do you want me to mention some of the highlights?
Well, I don't know the article, so you better mention it.
Okay. All right, so the question is, what is pulsed electromagnetic field therapy? And it says that PEMF, and that's what your device does. It says reduces pain, oxygenates cells, improves energy, promotes healing. Pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, also called pulsed electromagnetic therapy, pulse magnetotherapy, or PMF, is a reparative technique most commonly used in the field of osteopedics for the treatment of non-union fractures. Have you heard of that? We'll be right back with Dr. Norm Shealy. Class, Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, normshealy.com, normshealy.com. So this article talks about PEMF therapy and reducing pain and cramps, decreasing spasticity, improving mobility and coordination. Who can't use that? Improving bladder control, increasing energy levels, improving mood and sense of well-being, improving oxygenation and circulation, and relieving stress. There's a whole bunch of things that PEMF in this article talks about. How does that set with your observations and clinical experience?
There's no question that pulsed electromagnetic frequency, in my opinion, is the single best all-around electrotherapy. Now, there are many, many, many different variations in it. By the way, our paper came out on Friday, the one on narcotic or opioid addiction. And I think ours is better than any of the others that I know of, because ours does put the brain in gamma. All the others that I know of put it only into delta. But it does increase circulation. It does help pain. It does help, well, every single kind of symptom that I've seen, to a greater or lesser extent, can be helped by the right kind of PEMF.
And when you talk about the right kind of PEMF, are you talking about the one that you have developed? Is that the one that you've specified that Lou Cassidy has engineered the electronics for?
And thanks to you for introducing Lou to me, by the way. Yes.
I really love Lou Cassidy. I mean, I really do.
Well, we both do. He is a phenomenal person.
Mm-hmm. You know, Dr. Shealy, he's an electronic and electrical engineer, and he's one of those guys who he's so passionate. It's not like he went to school and just learned what he learned in school. He eats, sleeps, and drinks this. And it's impressive.
No, he really is a wonderful person and, creator, if you will.
And the interesting thing about Lou is there are hardware guys, there are software guys, there are radio frequency guys, there are communications type guys, and he's all of them. So he can take a concept and turn it into reality with building the hardware, programming the hardware with the software, and making it an actual product. It's quite unusual. Normally, it takes a whole team of people to do that kind of thing. But
that's true. All
absolutely.
very true. By the way, be careful. I don't want anybody stealing.
Well, he's moved to Nome, Alaska, and I don't think he is stealable. You know, that's an interesting thing that you just mentioned. When I was younger, a lot younger, in the early days of getting out of the university and going to work, there were guys called headhunters, and I don't know how they figured out who you were, but they would call you and say, I got a better job for you, and if you'll just jump ship, we'll get you a better job. Do you remember those days, Dr. Shealy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Nobody calls me anymore.
Well, interestingly, I got one recently, some job for an active neurosurgeon at a huge salary. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm not going back.
Yeah, I would not be able to take direction at that level. I just
deal with bureaucracy.
Yeah, that's what I mean. By the way, I did apply or try to find out information as to what I need to do to apply for a job at Walmart. And kind of a funny story. I just picked up the phone one day and I called the local super center and I said, "What do I need to do to apply for a job?" Now, I really wasn't applying for a job. I just wanted to learn about what you needed to do to apply. And they said, "Well, you have to come in or apply online." And I said, "Well, I don't want to do that. I want to talk to somebody." "Well, you can't talk to somebody." And I said, "Well, I can do any job that you've got. Any job. I want to talk to the manager. He doesn't need to hire anybody else. All he has to do is talk to me. I can do it. I can do any job. Microwave repair, computer repair. I can be a clerk. I can be a salesperson. I can be a technician. I can change oil. I can do it all." "Nope. Can't interview you." Class, Dr. Norm Shealy's with us. Dr. Shealy, you mentioned opioid addiction. And there's plenty of addiction all over the world. There is a homebrew drug that is in Russia right now. It's called Krokodil. Krokodil. Have you heard of this stuff?
Nope, I haven't heard of that one.
Whoa. Well, let me describe this. So I was in the kitchen yesterday and with our boys, and one of our boys has He travels around, knows lots of people in lots of countries because he is very interested in history. So he travels to these conventions and he discusses with people from, these are like fly-ins from all over the world, about military history, World War I, World War II, and so forth. And he has some friends from the former Soviet Union, and they mentioned to him about this absolutely awful concoction, homemade concoction, to replace the high-cost heroin. And the former Soviet Union, well, Russia has about 2 million heroin addicts. That's an enormous amount to me, 2 million. But anyway, so what these junkies are doing, because they can't afford that, what they do is they get these ingredients. They get painkillers, iodine, lighter fluid, industrial cleaning oil, syringes, cooking implements, and after about a half hour of boiling and distilling and mixing and shaking, they get this caramel-colored grunge, as it's referred to in this article I'm reading, and they inject it. And if they miss the vein, they get an abscess. And then, it will rot the flesh off their body. What happens is, this is, who would think of doing this? These guys, that's how desperate these guys are. So they spend, they've got a life of crime. They've been imprisoned. They typically contract HIV and hepatitis and an early death. So because of the cost of heroin, which would be 20 to 60 pounds per dose, they can get this fixed for about a couple dollars. So it's so inexpensive compared to the real heroin that they are making it, injecting themselves, and dying very quickly. So it's called Krokodil, Krokodil, also called crocodile because of what it does to the skin. Literally eats the flesh off their skin. I don't understand how anybody would think of injecting themselves with these kinds of things.
Now, Vance, you're using the word think, okay? Assuming that people who are that ignorant think about anything.
Yeah. Dr. Shealy, have you come across anything like that in your medical trials with helping people get off addiction with your electronic devices?
No, I haven't heard anything about that particular, junk drug. But to me, one of the interesting things, Vince, is I've had, as you may know, a number of surgeries through my life. And the first thing I say when I wake up is, don't give me any of that. I don't want even Demerol after surgery. I'd rather hurt than have my brain blocked. Now, I happen to like my brain, and I don't want to block it.
Very, very well said. And I've had surgeries as well, and I've said the same thing. And the doctors have said, we can kill that tissue, and you won't feel it. Now, but I do want to feel it because I want to know it's a problem. Well, there's another thing that's going on. RAID, R-A-I-D, the S.C. Johnson & Son company product that was introduced in 1956. This is a bug killer. Well, what's happening is people are using this bug killer for getting high. Okay, so according to Wikipedia, now, this is Wikipedia. This isn't. This is not an article. This is just a report on Wikipedia. The illicit use in recent years, the reports of the use of heavy-duty bug sprays as an illicit drug have emerged in the United States. Although products such as RAID are advertised as relatively safe to humans when used as intended, the act of huffing, smoking, or injecting RAID or other bug sprays can cause irreversible neurological damage, even death. And they say you should call the CDC emergency poison hotline if you suspect someone is using Raid illicitly. So in 2019, it was announced that 3 people have died in West Virginia after overdosing on an unidentified wasp spray. So the possible symptoms of ingesting bug poison include, but are not limited to, erratic behavior, nausea, headache, sore throat, extreme inflammation, redness of the hands and feet, convulsions, coma, and death. So here we have people using bug spray, inhaling it, injecting it, smoking it to get high. Unbelievable. And I didn't know about that either until our son said, "Look up Raid, Dad. Look up Raid." Our son's in his 30s, so I guess he reads a lot, and somehow he came across this as well. So he wanted us to know. And the tagline on the insecticide Raid, which is sold in North America, United Kingdom, Israel, Australia, Saudi Arabia, South Korea, Russia, and Argentina, the tagline for Raid, their slogan, kills bugs dead. So if it kills bugs dead,
kills people dead too.
Dr. Shealy, I don't understand. This is like dumber than dumb, which I guess leads to the next thing. And any comments on this so far? Have you heard of people doing? I
haven't heard of it, but now I know. Certain things I would never think of, but
right.
There are many of them.
Right. So I guess the next thing is, all right, so who's doing this? Now, I don't think it's senior citizens. I can't imagine senior citizens, inhaling Raid. Hey, let's get, instead of playing cards today, let's go get some Raid.
Oh, dear.
I don't think that's likely.
Well, I have a bridge.
Yeah, right. But what is happening is that young people are bashing their parents and their grandparents. And we've talked about this a number of times. But I know that young people, and I'm talking about just a few years old, if they don't get their way, they yell and scream, they demand. Where did this come from? We used to call this the terrible twos, I guess. But it seems to be becoming more and more violent. These young people are getting more angry if they don't get what they want when they want it. But it's not just 2 years old. It's people in their 10s, 20s, 30s, and the parents and the grandparents don't know what to do. We've had one of our instructors even mention on the air, I was quite surprised that he said this, that he gets yelled at and cursed at by his grandson. I mean, I'm thinking, take that guy out to the woodshed is in order. But then that grandson probably has a cell phone and call 911 and the grandfather be arrested. So, because that's what these young people are taught in elementary school. Oh, if you hear mommy and daddy, arguing, 911, call 911. And then what happens is the cops show up, a couple of them, because it's a domestic argument or domestic dispute or domestic call. And then mommy and daddy get arrested, and then they become felons. And then as a felon, you can't have a gun. So that's the reason I believe that young people are being told, just to keep everybody safe. And that way mommy and daddy can't protect each other or themselves because they won't be able to have a gun because they had an argument. And you made all that possible by calling 911. Thank you very much. You little shavers. We've lost our way, Dr. Shealy. The young people are very angry. And I can understand part of it. I can understand it because they don't have the opportunities for jobs. But they also don't want them. I mean, well, let me ask you this, Dr. Shealy. When you were young and you were in, high school, didn't you want to have an after-school job to earn some money to do some things? I did. And
I did. I had one.
What did you do?
Well, I worked as an assistant butcher in my father's meat department.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I learned to operate.
Okay. Well, that's, that makes a lot of sense. It really does. And class, just if you think about this, I just want to share this with the class, because we've done some butchering here at the farm. If you go to a supermarket, the meat department, there's a glass wall, and you can see the butcher, he can see you, and you can see him or her. But the reason it's a separate room is for sanitary reasons, also because it's cold in there. And the reason those guys wear jackets is because it's cold in there. So if you think that butchering is fun, your hands are going to be cold, you're going to be cold, the meat's cold, everything is cold. Is that right, Dr. Shealy?
Yes, it has to be.
Right. So I think that in my case, I made submarine sandwiches at the local independent sub shop, and then I became a mechanic at Sears Roebuck and Company after school, and I also sold auto parts behind the counter. And I also pumped gas and repaired air conditioning systems and fixed cars at an independent Texaco station. So that's what I did after schools when I was younger. But it was an honor. It was literally an honor to have a job, because you were selected above the other guys that wanted a job too. And we had a path where we could earn some money, but I don't think young people have as much of a path today, nor do I think the young people want that path today. We can come back to this topic in just a second. David in Illinois, welcome. Hey, David? Did I lose you, David?
You there?
Yeah. David, we're going into a break. So hold that thought. Did you want to talk about Krokodil?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. David, USA Prepares instructor, and Dr. Norman Shealy, and I will be right back. Class medical doctor, Dr. Norman Shealy is with us. Surgeon, broadcaster, farmer, Native American medicine man, Surgeon of the Year, author. And David in Illinois is with us, USA Prepares instructor. David, you've got some information about Krokodil?
Yeah, I was with taking D to one of our specialists at one of these major universities around here, and we were sitting there, and I noticed a guy come in, and he had a hole in his leg. He had his shorts on. So I asked when we got in the room, I said, "There's a guy out there with a hole in his leg," and I could have swore I seen bone. And she said, "Yes, that's this new drug going around. They're injecting it in, to their muscles, and it eats away and just eats it away." And I'm like, "Well, what do you do?" I mean, you could see his bone. And she says, "Yeah, they just won't stop." And they treat him for a little while. Next thing you know, they're gone. They never come back. And, they won't stop. And I believe, so I did research about it, and they said the first time it showed up in the United States from Russia was over in Joliet, Illinois. And they had quite a few patients, and they said the same thing. They just were gone. They never showed back up. I mean, how do you hide, your your skin and your bone rotting off? I mean, your muscles, so you can see bone, and you're walking around like this. And
well, it gets rid of one more incompetent person. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I mean,
David. David, if you were to liken this to any disease, okay, would the closest disease that you would liken this to be leprosy, where your flesh just rots off?
I think it's worse.
Well, yeah, it's faster for sure. From everything you said, it's much faster. Leprosy keep going for years.
Yeah, I mean, it to the rest of their body looks fine, but where they start injecting it at, that part, so you could have a whole big chunk of you gone, and then they just find a new place to start injecting, and I looked and did some research about it afterwards, because I couldn't believe they were doing this, and they showed some pictures of people in Russia where they're nothing but a pile of skin and bones, and they have to the rest of their life sitting in bed until they still won't stop taking it.
There's there's an image on the internet of this guy's arm, and it literally looks like it had been hacked, brutally hacked. Chunks of it just ripped off. You could see missing where flesh was, where muscle was, and it's horrible. And these people, this is not an act of war. This is not some malice. This is them doing it to themselves, and they have to know that if they do this, this is going to be the result. But yet, it seems like the despair is so great that people are willing to do this. And I have to question why. And it looks like young people are in a tremendous state of despair. David, I've never asked you this, and you don't have to answer if you don't want, but would you like to share your approximate age?
Yeah, I had. They asked me that a while. I had to think how old I was. 54.
54. And do you see young people who are in a tremendous state of despair and who are turning to drugs? Have you seen this other than the kinds of examples where if you're in a waiting room?
Yeah, I've noticed, and I observe people when I'm out everywhere. I can't help it. But you see kids. I mean, they're so used to have everything given to them. The whole society of we play ball. No, there's no winners. Let's not make the child unhappy. Anytime they're unhappy, let's find a way to get them to the mall. Everything they want. They don't know what it's like to have any hardship and cope with it, in my opinion. So therefore, if anything slightly happens to them, or somebody doesn't listen to them, or the easy way to forget it is for them to go to any kind of drugs that are accepted amongst all their other peers. That's just my opinion that I've seen.
I think you're right on the money, and that's exactly what our son said. And let me make a statement. I'd love to hear Dr. Shealy's response to this. Dr. Shealy, we're talking about young people who are unhappy. If there, let's say, is a gathering, let's say it's maybe a gathering with a whole bunch of people, like a picnic or a barbecue. Sometimes the young people go off and they're not part of the discussion. They're not part of the laughing and the joking and the having the fun, but they do have their cell phone in their hand. They're looking down. Dr. Shealy, any comments about that? Is that a personality type disorder?
To me, it sounds like psychosis.
Okay. And what does that mean, Dr. Shealy?
That means they're crazy as hell. Almost as bad as psychiatrists.
David, did you want to hold through the top of the hour?
Yeah, I was going to tell you something else.
Okay.
That's okay.
Sounds great. Okay, David and Dr. Norm Shealy and I will be right back. God willing, and the creek don't rise and the internet's staying up. We'll be back. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Blissed? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. David in Illinois is with us. We were talking about Krokodil, this concoction of all kinds of chemicals that will rot your flesh off. David, you had a couple more comments?
Yeah. You were talking about them inhaling Ray. No, that part doesn't surprise. Yeah, this spray, insecticide.
Right.
Kids inhaling it. You there?
Yes, that's right. That's what they're doing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me because even back when I was all the way through a teenager and we would walk the beat, the kids would come out during the day because they felt they were safer, and you would see them with an empty soda can, and they would have the bag of paint, the paint in the bag, and they were inhaling paint back then. So that doesn't surprise me at all that they do that. I mean, they just going to look for the next. I'm surprised it's been continuing so long, but yeah, we see the kids that smoke drugs or drink would come out at night. Those kids that would carry, they felt more comfortable. They can carry that right with them in public, and nobody really cared. No, they didn't think nobody noticed, I should say. You know.
Yeah, I used to ask our son when he was high school age if he would go to the Chinese factory outlet. At that time, we used to buy grease for our tractors, tubes of grease, and we'd get like 12 at a time. And these are grease cartridges, 14.1 ounces, and you put them in a grease gun, and then you just pump the grease gun, and grease comes out the end and goes into the Zerk fittings for the steering and all the movement parts of the tractor and implements and so forth. And he would get a hard time when he went to Walmart because they would say you have to be, I think, 21 to buy grease. And he said, why is that? And they, well, because people inhale it. Really inhale it. So they take the cap off. and so I used to get kind of frosted, and we'd go to the checkout, and I'd have to go buy it, okay, because he wasn't of age to buy grease. And so I would just look at our son. We'd be checking out. We'd still be at the conveyor belt, and I'd say, well, let's go sit over there on the bench, and we'll just eat it right here. I mean, really, I just find this craziness. Now, I do remember when I was growing up, David and Dr. Shealy, we used to make model airplanes, model ships, model tanks, these plastic, put together models, and used to use glue. Put a little bit of this model airplane or model making glue on the tip of a toothpick, and just put a little tiny dot on the part you wanted to glue. But that got banned because people were putting squeezing some glue in a bag and inhaling the glue fumes and making themselves high. So a few jerks really make it miserable for everybody else. So that kind of market disappeared. And I wonder if those jerks who did that killed the model making experience, because you used to be able to go to a big box type store. They weren't quite big boxes yet, but that kind of a store, even supermarkets, and you could buy models and the glue, and they were everywhere. Do you remember that, Dr. Shealy?
Oh, heavens, yes. I even put one or two together.
Sure. And now, who does that? Who does that anymore? And maybe that's one of the reasons why young people are in such despair. There's nothing for them to do that does not include a smartphone. David, any comments from you?
Yeah. Well, I think one other reason that these kids are, feeling so left out and they're having so many emotional problems is these schools, while they're in school, they want them all drugged up so they sit there like a bump on a log, like a zombie, staring at the wall. And when they're out of school, they don't care what they're doing. Then they're off the drugs, especially when they graduate. Then they're off the drugs too, And that's got to put has some big factor in it,
David, I'm trying to figure out what you're saying here, but I believe I understand. I believe that what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, that in order to have the students comatose in the classroom so they're not raising their hands, they're not asking questions, they're not thinking, they're just there receiving information, because of that experience, that when they get out, when they graduate, they haven't learned much, they haven't been creative, they haven't participated, and they don't know what to do. Is that what you're saying, because they haven't learned enough?
Yeah, that's part of it, but during that time while they're in school, they're dousing them with Ritalin, Adderall, everything else, is, to sit there and be calm. When the kids should be having some time outside, basketball, this or that, instead of burning off the energy, they want them sitting there in the class doing nothing.
Dr. Shealy, have you been made aware that the public schools want children on Ritalin and other drugs to keep them calm, and they literally get paid extra? So the schools get X dollars per pupil, X dollars of federal money for those who need lunch assistance or free lunch or assisted lunch, and extra for those who are on these mind-numbing drugs like Ritalin. Are you aware of that?
I really wasn't, but I guess I am now.
Okay. Well, that's one of the reasons. So literally, when our son decided, this is just unbelievable to me. When our son wanted to try for the very first time the public training camp as a high school student here in Missouri, we met with the principal and the superintendent of schools, and we were told that it would be a really, if we could sign him up for a free lunch program, that would be good. And we said, no, if he's going to eat it, he's going to pay for it. But they said, yeah, but it helps the school if he gets a free lunch.
Hey, insanity is everywhere. That's all you can say.
But this is, yes, but this is absolutely true. David, have you heard of this? David, are you there?
Oh, I am now. It started to go out again, but
I was going to say, David, you cause a lot of problems.
I wanted to apologize to him, to you guys about this, but like I said, I've been there. I witnessed these things, and maybe it's me, but I see these things, and to me, it's glowing in front of me. And then when I mention it to somebody, or I try to talk to somebody that I know, they act like I'm the one that did it. Shoot the messenger. I'm like, you don't see this? What's the matter with your vision? I don't understand.
What's the matter with your vision? I've shortened that, David, to what's the matter with you? Not you, but I mean, I'm starting to think out loud when I talk to people. Like, what's the matter with you? What? This is obvious. How come you can't understand this? Where have you been,
gentlemen? I'm beginning to understand why Congress is so bad. If people if people in the community are doing things like this, no wonder they vote for idiots.
Dr. Shealy, this is absolutely true. I have on the Ron Gibson channel a 15-minute video of the Laclede Electric Cooperative Board of Directors annual meeting. And in that meeting, I was on stage for just over 2 minutes. And you can see these bumbling directors running for re-election. They're not eloquent. There's no reason why any of them should be on the board of directors running this electric cooperative. And if you watch this, you just go to, if you just go type into any search engine, YouTube, Vincent Finelli Laclede, Laclede, you'll find it. And there it is. There's two of them. One is for last year, one's for this year. And literally, you will see and hear people clapping when my time is up and I go off the stage. They're not clapping like, yay, what a great job. They're clapping, yay, he's done speaking. We don't have to listen to him anymore. I literally, of the 27,000 members of Laclede Electric, I got 100 votes, even 100. And if you compare the presentation of the other guys saying, like, I'm from here, my mama's from here, and I'm learning, I'm going to seminars, and, I'm running for re-election. This has been a real good learning experience for me, so I'm learning how to do my job here as a board of directors member, and it's thank you very much. They get 4-5 times more votes than I do, and they get reelected, and they have no clue as to what's happening.
Explains. We have the Democrats who are beyond crazy, and the Republicans who are castrates, in my opinion. I'm being kind.
Yeah, and there's a video series I've been recommending to our class, and normally I say if you choose to, and I'm saying this is mandatory. It's called The Walking Dead, and it's what happens when, we'll call it a disease, is inflicted on the world. And only a few survivors actually make it, and they have to work with each other, and they can't. It would be like Springfield, Missouri, at war with Lebanon, Missouri, at war with Mountain Grove, Missouri, at war with Kansas City, at war. I mean, literally, it's like we want what you've got, and we're going to take it. And people cannot get along. The distrust, the mistrust, the lies, the cheating, the me first. It is unbelievable. And I think it's a documentary looking back at where we are today. I really believe it. And class, and I'm not kidding about this, you need to watch it. And if you don't watch it, I believe you will not survive, because you will see what happens when someone comes to your door. You'll see it. And you'll see, and if you don't have a gun right now, you better get one right now. If you think that your safety is important to you and your family. And I'm serious. And plenty of ammo for it, because there's going to be a time we've got a bunch of socialists that want to take the guns that we have now. And I believe ammo is going to be restricted. I believe guns are going to be restricted. I believe registration is next. Confiscation is right after that. And how's it going to be when we're in a civil war and you have no way of defending yourself except maybe your kitchen carving knife? Seriously. Or a butter knife. Or a fork.
I'll tell you one thing with people. If they do pass gun legislation, they will more than likely, like they always do, pass the legislation or some add-on amendment to it that exempts law enforcement, politicians, and those individuals are upper class. They'll be exempt. I would almost guarantee it.
Dr. Shealy?
Well, I think you ought to put on your website the thing we got from Joey this morning about the coming World War III.
Okay. My website's down, but I'll tell you, class, more about that when we come back. David, we've got Gene in Kentucky.
Yep.
Waiting.
Thank you.
Anything else that you need to say?
No.
Okay.
No, let somebody else interrupt your day. Thank you.
David, of course, you know I was kidding about all the problems you cause. And what I really mean by that is whenever you're on, the Internet gets flaky. Class, Dr. Norm Shealy is with us. Dr. Shealy, to contact your office to set up an appointment with you via Skype or telephone or in person in Springfield, Missouri, what would you like us to do?
Call 417-351-5221.
Class, that's 417-351-5221 if you'd like to chat about your personal medical concerns with Dr. Norman Shealy, medical doctor. Gene in Kentucky. Welcome. You're on with Dr. Shealy. Hey, Gene. You're on.
Do what now?
Hello?
Well, that's up to you. You're on the air with Dr. Shealy.
I had to take off my speakerphone. Okay, I'm complaining now about the school menus. I'm looking at the local newspaper in this one-horse town. A breakfast, elementary school, French toast sticks and syrup, a donut hole, fruit juice, or milk. Another day, it's breaded pork chop. This is breakfast. Biscuit or Pop-Tart. So I called the local Tradio thing just to advertise something, buy, sell, trade. And I mentioned, because they had the dietitian on there for the local schools and stuff, and I complained. I said, there's nothing healthy about Pop-Tarts. I wouldn't even let them in my house, But anyway, so she hung up on me, And so she did make a comment later. Well, that's better than nothing. She said, well, they are whole grain. The dietitian later on commented.
Really?
Yes. I actually made that
Gene,
comment.
Gene, I have a comment.
Yeah.
I have a comment to make about what you said. When I lived in Virginia, I was having lunch in the cafeteria with the principal of an elementary school. And I spent a lot of time in the public school system as a consultant in Virginia. So I knew a lot of principals, and I knew a lot of superintendents, and I knew a lot of teachers. So when I was there for the day, I wanted to see what the public school experience was really like. So I would eat lunch with, sometimes, not very often, with the principal. And that day there was French fries, and you get some packets of ketchup. And he told me that according to the school rules, a packet of ketchup is considered a vegetable.
I remember that. I remember hearing that, yes.
Oh, dear.
So, now, I'm not kidding. Now, these packets, and I remember him saying, "Oh, you don't want that ketchup. Let me go get you the good ketchup." So he got a different kind of ketchup from from the back room there.
Corn syrup, maybe.
Well, first of all, it was a plastic packet. It wasn't a metallic type plastic. It was tiny. It was like the fun size packet. If they have a regular size packet, and then there'd be the fun size, which is just enough so you can see it. But that was considered literally. That one little packet of ketchup was considered the vegetable that went with the lunch for that day. What I'm saying is you're right. Yes.
I now understand why my dear, beloved, nurturing mother brought me lunch to school, even when I was a senior in high school.
Well, I ate junkie as a kid. I mean, I would buy these stupid peanut butter buns we had. This was back in the 50s and 60s and that. Oh, and this county, the whole county gets free lunch and free breakfast and free textbooks. We never got all that, and I grew up poor.
And did you have to walk to school?
Yes, except for 1 year, we moved around a lot because the parents couldn't afford to own a home until I was in ninth grade. And, we walked. I wouldn't know what it was to get a ride. Because we lived in the so-called city, city of Louisville. Mm-hmm. And so it was always just the 1 year that we lived in so-called a little bit of country area. And I took a bus.
So, Gene,
half a mile to the bus stop.
Gene, are you saying that in your area right now it's free breakfast and free lunch?
Grayson County, Kentucky. Everybody qualifies, and it infuriates me. Because our taxpayers' money's going toward this junk food.
Yeah. And did you have anything else you wanted to share? You want to hold through the break?
My husband on a cholesterol medicine I don't like the thought of.
All right. Well, you'll hear more about that when you come back. Class Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. Telephone number to call Dr. Shealy's office, 417-351-5221. Website, normshealy.com, normshealy.com. Gene, you want to talk about cholesterol medicine and your husband's
yes, he had
use
an
of
episode.
It, right?
He went to the hospital with chest pains. He drove himself because we live apart. Then he called me from the hospital, and they wanted to do tests. And that, well, it ended up being, and then they ambulanced him to Louisville to do that, that stuff with the dye in your veins and ultrasound and all that. But they said that two of his, another one of his bypasses collapsed, but he's still, or whatever. So they put him on this, of course, he's willingly taking it, some kind of cholesterol-lowering medication. I told him cholesterol he needs, but he won't listen. It's called Isotribe or something like that. And then they've changed his blood pressure to another junkie medication, too. And he won't, like me, won't give up the bad stuff, So
what do you mean by he won't give up the bad? What do you mean by he won't give up the bad stuff?
And the beer and the sugar stuff, yeah.
Well,
booze and beer,
if he's so stupid that he won't give up smoking and beer, etc.
He doesn't smoke. No, he doesn't smoke.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it. Just beer.
Booze. The booze and the beer.
Well, again, one a day wouldn't be bad, but more than that is just shovels to the grave.
Sure. We know that, yeah. Plus sugar is bad, too, and I'm a culprit there. But are y'all also hot and dry like we are? We're in the 90s again today, and I'm sick of water in my little bit of garden.
We are hot and humid.
Yeah, we're hot and dry. It's almost been a month since we've had rain. And
Gene, I'm concerned about what you said.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about the booze and the beer, how much are we talking about?
I'm not sure because I'm out there with him all the time.
Well, you got to see the cans and the bottles, right?
Well, no, he takes them to recycle and set it on his own, and he takes his friend takes the glass to Louisville.
Gene, do you live with this man?
He's an alcoholic. What?
Do you live with this man?
No, not really.
Okay. I thought you said he was your husband.
I can go back now that I gave up my tickets again. I just don't like living down in the boondocks, real boondocks, you know.
Okay, so you don't see your husband very often. Is that what you're saying?
No, he's coming today. He comes a couple times a week. We get along better that way. Because he wants to be at the lake, and I don't want to be there. It's nothing but 14 miles from civilization, and it's down in, I call it hellhole. It's down in the, don't go to the lake, and it's down in gravel path, and I can't get out without spinning tires and wheels, and 14 miles just to get to Walmart.
Sounds like heaven to me.
Oh, no. Not if you're a lousy driver like me that's scared to go 55 miles an hour on these little country roads, you know, with no place to pull over, you know. There should be no 55 miles an hour on these country roads where you got people living up on these, you know, long driveways and hills and stuff. No.
Gene,
no.
Gene, if you want him to live a long time, he's going to need to moderate. I think that's what Dr. Shealy just told you.
He's going to do it anyway. He said he's going to try to give it up a little bit, but I can't control him. You know, I can control myself. You know, he's got to do what he wants to do. But
okay. Let's talk about you. You can't control yourself. What are you talking about?
About sugar. About sugar. I can control myself, but I keep eating it. I keep staying up late.
I'm really confused.
Right now,
I'm really confused now. Did you say you can control yourself, but you're still eating it?
Yeah, I can, but probably too
Then
much.
you can't. Then you can't control it.
Yeah, I can. I just don't want to. It tastes too good. I'll admit it. But I'm saying it's because I'm not getting enough sleep because I'm staying up too late watering, out there watering for 4 hours at night, so I can't stand the heat during the day. It takes me 4 to 5 hours to water my 2 sections of gardening. I put them in, you know, like jugs of water. I fill up the big jugs, and it still takes me that long to go from jug to jug.
I'm gonna make a recommendation. Do you have a garden hose?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. It has to run 100 feet to get to the first section, and it takes about 200 feet to get to my next section.
Okay.
But I'm using my water. I don't know if I'm going to run my well dry or not. You know what I mean? I'm going to be between a rock and a hard place, you know. I asked everybody to pray for rain. But what can we do?
Have wells run dry in your area?
I don't know. It's the first time I ever had one. I'm from the city of Louisville.
Okay. Well, you ought to call your neighbors and ask.
They don't have wells. They all closed them up. I'm the only one that's so-called, because they're idiots. They went to the city water years ago, long before we moved here. Like I guess in the 90s. I don't know.
Okay. I don't get it. Okay, so you just explained why people vote for Hillary Clinton. Okay.
I know. Even the Amish. I asked the Amish. I asked them, you know, at least they're honest when I ask them. I said, well, what do you water with? He said, well, he waters from his pond. I said, well, just asking too. What do you drink personally? He says, well, we have city water. I said, oh my goodness, how silly! You know, I mean, people that live out in the sticks and drinking that so-called city water.
There's only one reason why I can think of having city water. Only one, and that is if the groundwater has been contaminated.
I don't know.
By some chemical company, as it has been.
Fertilizers going up the hill all the time. One time they had a spill out here. I watched it, and people take the truck up the hill and watch somebody spill out, you know.
Right.
So upset.
Right. Well, there's a chemical company in New Jersey called the Toms River Chemical Company, and they polluted the aquifer.
Oh, I believe it.
And they did, and people were bathing in their well water, and they were getting skin cancer.
Yeah.
Every kind of cancer you can think of.
Sure, well,
and what they did was they brought in, the answer was city water, and everybody, praise the Lord, city water. But it was because the chemical company destroyed the aquifer.
Well, the people around here they're probably doing GMO corn and all these soy products. I see soy all the time. Still the soy. What few farms are left?
Gene,
been gone to auction.
Gene, you have our phone number, right?
Yeah. You mean a call-in line?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking now.
Would you do me a favor?
Radio went off.
Not next Monday, but the following Monday. Would you call in and tell us your success of giving up sugar? Because I've got some homework for you.
Yeah, I know.
And I'll bet you Dr. Shealy would put an exclamation point on this.
Yeah.
Knock off the sugar.
I know.
Stop it.
I know.
No candy. No sweets. You can have honey. You can have honey, but you don't need the candy. You don't need these candy bars. You don't need the sugar.
But I eat both. I eat good stuff. Like right now, I got my Crenshaw cooking. I eat both. I eat all day long.
Okay, but you don't need the sugar and you don't need the candy because you've mentioned in the past that you love candy.
Yeah, cookies. I used to make my
Dr. Shealy, do you have any comments before I jump off the bridge?
I think that I have nothing to say. Anything I say might not be very pleasant.
I know.
I think what Dr. Shealy is saying is, Gene, you're in control, and you need to actually do the right thing. You can't complain that things are going bad when you're doing the things that cause things to go bad. There's plenty of bad stuff happening. Gene, we love you. Okay, we do. We don't want anything to happen to you that's bad. We only want good things to happen to you. But you have got to help yourself, and you've got to help your husband and say, look, you got to knock it off with the booze. You got to not. Okay.
Tell me I'm not his mother.
Well, you married him, right?
To me, Gene, I have to say, you need a mother, and so does he.
I know. Heck, I eat better than my mother did, believe me. I eat a whole lot better than my mother.
I don't know what your mother ate, but I'm having trouble believing that you're eating better than your mother.
Yes.
If you have all this candy.
My mother probably never had wholly fresh vegetables. She never gardened anything like that. I love my mother, but she ate out of cans. In the last 2 years of her life, she ate Little Debbie's. But I would never buy them for her. My sister would go and buy them for us in the store. But she lived to be 80-something. Oh, that's one thing good. She said,
Little Debbie's, those are those snacks that don't need refrigeration, that you can just put them in the closet and forget about them.
Well,
and
Pop-Tarts the same way.
Yeah. Gene, thanks so much for calling in. So in 2 weeks, I want to hear, in 2 weeks, Gene, here's your homework. I'm not kidding. In 2 weeks, I'd like you to call back. I want you to call back in 2 weeks and tell us the success you've had with dumping sugar and candy. Okay, please, would you do that?
And not stay up late, not eat late at night, yeah.
All right, and get some sleep, okay?
Oh, I'll try. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Everybody
Gene,
have
thanks
a good day.
so much.
Bye-bye.
You too, bye. Dr. Shealy, she's her own worst enemy.
Of course, but then most Americans are. 97% of Americans are.
And I think that's where that expression, I know I'm supposed to check the oil in my car. I know that had I done that, I wouldn't have had the engine blow up. I know that I should have put air in the tire, but and that.
And the engine blowing up in this case is the body.
I know that I shouldn't be smoking. I mean, geez. Okay, so we mentioned that there are plenty of bad things going on. So Nestle has figured out that their coffee beans has high levels of glyphosate in them. And they're concerned. Glyphosate is everywhere, right? So Nestle's got it in their coffee beans. So don't panic and buy other coffee beans because Nestle's figured out and they've admitted that it's in theirs. It's probably in all of them. Right, Dr. Shealy?
Well, I hope it's not in Gano coffee.
Well, okay, glyphosate's in the rain. Roundup is in the rain.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's got to be some in just about everything. Pasta, wheat, the vegetables. I mean, it's coming from the rain. And Bayer, the company that bought Monsanto for $63 billion, is now facing billions of dollars in lawsuits. Actually, I hope it takes them down. I really do.
I hope all 4,000 yield suits of $2 $200 million or more each.
Yes.
4,000 times 200 million might get rid of them.
Mm-hmm. So here's how bad it is. When I was at the university, the drinking age was 18. And I was very concerned about punch, mixed drinks out of, a common bowl. I wouldn't have any of that. The only two things I drank legally was, and I'll tell you why, one was scotch and the other was beer out of a sealed container. And the reason for scotch is nobody liked it, so nobody had it, so I didn't, if somebody would say, hey, how about some punch? No, I only drank scotch. Oh. Not that I drank scotch. It's just nobody had it, so I didn't have to worry about it. And I just got an email from Steve Elkins, my engineer told me, because I don't check my emails during the broadcast, but so I checked during the commercial break, and Steve Elkins, an ER nurse and an ICU nurse, said that in the hospital they call it noncompliance. People don't listen, they do what they want, and then they complain about their bad luck. It's not bad luck, bad choices, responsibility, and accountability. They're weak people, they love their crutches. Steve, that's what he said. George in New Hampshire, welcome. It's always good to hear from you.
Hi, Dr. Shealy. I don't mean to wear out my welcome, guys. I'll just say that...
it's an impossibility. You cannot wear out your welcome. You are welcome.
I appreciate that. Dr. Shealy, I've given your name to certain people. I try to give them to people who I feel like intelligent people that, or at least caring enough people that, in other words, they'd be the most likely candidates for people who would actually want to do something to improve their life. And I had a good friend, Al. Now, these are salt-of-the-earth people, but I remember my friend Al, he's got all kinds of Native American stuff all over the house. He's a French-Canadian. He's a nice man. He was complaining about the chemo he was receiving and what it was doing to him and how it hurt and everything else. And he was telling the doctor it hurt him. So I told him, I said, Al, I gave him the information to call you. And I told him Mondays, I said, call, they're very nice. And I told him, he said, he's not only an MD, long-standing, I said, he's also a Native American medicine man that the tribe, welcomed in and trained. And, I don't think he's called to this date. And and I'm talking about people who are decent people, down-to-earth people. And then I have another friend, Claudette, a nice older woman. She's saying how her husband's ballooning with diabetes in the nursing home, and they're throwing so many different parties and other things and events that they're letting pretty much the patients eat what they want because I think that they don't want to fight with the patients too much. But to date, I've told them this well over a month ago. Nobody ever calls. And I'll say this too, Vincent. The people... Oh, by the way, I saw that presentation you made at the last election for that electrical co-op. And I know you were talking from your heart that you cared about them by talking about the smart meters. But the thing was, I think the only real appeal that would have maybe, at least given you much more attraction would have been what I told you about if you hit them in the pocketbook and tell them, look, the rates are going up, the rates are going up. But I really believe, gentlemen, that we're all part of the Walking Dead to varying degrees. It's like a vampire epidemic. We've been bitten. Some of us have been drained of a little blood. Some of us have been drained of maybe a quarter of the blood. Some have. But I honestly think that there's spiritual entities, and not so good ones, that have in this world, in this domain, control people, and it prevents anything that's coming in. It inverts it and it reverses it, and it makes them work against their own best interest. And they'll always seem to vote for Barabbas, as they say. When Pilate gave the crowd that choice in ancient Judea and said, look at. Do you want this murderer who maims his victims whenever he robs them, or would you like the Prince of Peace? And they all said, give us Barabbas. And basically what would it say? You know how they say, give us liberty or give us death? Well, I think their call is give us death. We don't want liberty. Am I wrong?
I think a spiritual plague is a good concept. It certainly somehow we seem to be in that state.
I think it was the television programs, because sometimes I think if I could talk to the owner's pets, and the pet could dial, and it could actually, enunciate intelligible words, I think the pet would call for the owner before the owner would. I'm sorry to put it that way, but I don't think I'm far off.
No, you're not. You're not far off. I wanted to read a letter that was written by a very famous person. I had it in the kitchen. I had the original letter with the original signature, 1937, and I wanted to read how cogent, how succinct, how well it was written compared to what people use today to communicate. It's unbelievable, the difference that from 1937 to 1919. And it's a really short letter. If I can, I might be able to, I think my son took the letter to show it. It's from a very famous person. And I think he took it with him this morning because I was going to read it on the air.
Vincent?
I'll see if I can read it tomorrow. I don't want to spoil it. It's
okay. Right.
George, of all the people who might appreciate it, you are certainly one, and I know Dr. Shealy's another one. But very simply, it was a thank you letter for someone who was expressing interest, and that's, we don't do that anymore. Now it's THX, fax, or however you pronounce THX. We can't even say thank you very much for ABCDE. Now we've lost our way, and I don't know how we can regain it. I really don't. How do you encourage young people who don't want to get up? They don't want to start, they don't want to stay with it, and they don't want to finish. They don't even want to think about it. George, thank you so much. Dr. Shealy, thank you.
Have a good one.
And class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.